So I was like, Hot Springs, Arkansas?
Yeah.
Where's that? Like, where's Arkansas?
Like, I know it exists.
Someone has got to brew beer with the hot spring water.
That is.
You have to do it. Oh. So I asked the park if I could open a brewery and use the spring water, and the answer was...
Welcome to Stout Conversations, where every week we sit down with creative thinkers in the craft beer industry and beyond. Your hosts, Ken and April, live and work in a 24-foot RV, traveling the country in search of great stories around a great beer. Come and listen to a story about a woman named Rose, traveling tuba player, that's how the story goes. Then one day she was looking for some beer, and up through the ground come a bubbling cheer. Water, that is. Liquid gold. Arkansas beer. This week we talk with Rose and Jimm of Superior Bathhouse Brewery, which is home to the only brewery in a U.S. national park and the only brewery in the world to utilize thermal spring water in their beer.
Very interesting background. You go from getting degrees in music with the tuba, right?
Yes, correct.
Degrees in music with the tuba to opening a brewery, and not just opening a brewery, but the first one in a national park, the only one I think still.
Yes.
And over a hot spring. How does this happen? How did you go start this whole journey?
Believe it or not, the tuba part is related, and that tuba players love to drink beer.
Really?
Yes.
That's a tuba thing.
Tuba players love to drink beer.
I don't know many tuba players.
And also, I spent a year in Manchester, England, where I got my graduate degree, and there is so much good beer in England. Yeah, I mean, I got to go to Amsterdam, to Germany, Austria, Hungary. Spent a lot of time in Greece, actually, Switzerland.
Oh wow, you were all over the place.
All over the place. Yeah.
Were you a brewer yet at all?
I was not homebrewing yet at that point. But like I said, tuba players like beer. So my undergraduate tuba professor made sure that I was drinking good beer when I would do my college partying, I guess.
Okay.
So actually, one of the first really good beers I fell in love with was Harpoon IPA.
Oh yeah.
Which is a great,
that is
straight up IPA. I think Fuggle hops or British hops, kind of a British style IPA, and that one beer kind of really shaped my whole taste for craft beer. And then I grew up in New Jersey. I went to school in Connecticut, and there's obviously a lot of craft beer in the area. So I fell in love with beer. Moved to England, drank a lot of beer, enjoyed it, and then moved back so I met my then future, now past husband, and he was a home brewer.
Okay.
So as soon as we moved back from England, we moved to Springfield, Illinois, and got a home brewing set back together.
Oh, cool.
When you go off to grad school, you sell all that stuff. So reaccumulated all the homebrew stuff and started brewing, and he taught me how to brew. First, you start with the 5-gallon batches, and maybe you bottle a batch, and you're like, no. So then you start, and you keg a batch, and you're kegging.
Now, does he have his own brewery?
No, but he is a tuba player. So.
But he's
still a tuba player.
So how do you go from all of this traveling in Europe into the great beers there, home brewing in Illinois?
Right.
You're right there by Chicago, which is kind of a hot one.
And a job opportunity popped up here for my spouse.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, Hot Springs, Arkansas?
Yeah.
Where's that? Like, where's Arkansas? Like, I know it exists.
I know what we thought before we got here.
Yeah. So there's Arkansas. I was researching, like, thermal spring water you can drink. That's insane. Usually thermal spring water is like, eggy, farty, sulfurous.
Yeah, that's sulfury.
Right.
And you're like,
yeah. So the hot spring water here in Hot Springs is potable.
Okay.
The reason it's potable is it is forced up through basically a limestone bed.
Okay.
So it's very, very clear, very clean water. Not a lot of not a lot of sediment in it or anything like that. And it's so hot. It's 144 degrees.
So that kind of kills germs and stuff.
Exactly.
And then it kind of filters itself naturally.
Any kind of dangerous bacteria cannot survive in the water.
Cool.
So that is why the city of Hot Springs brew, not only for the bathing purpose, but you could drink the hot spring water.
Do you know if anyone ever had the idea of starting this before you?
Actually, yes, there were 2 or 3 attempts to build a brewery here in the national park. They just fell through for whatever reason. They were very very high budget projects, and they just weren't able to be pulled together. Also, Arkansas is not that big of a beer culture yet. We're getting there, but 20 years ago, definitely not. It would have been probably a really weird idea.
Yeah, if it had been that long ago, I could see it.
So I probably came along at the right time. But yeah, I was moving to town and I Googled, breweries in Hot Springs, and there were none. And I'm thinking, someone has got to brew beer with the hot spring water. You have to do it. Yes,
yeah, if you could do it, why not?
Do that.
I mean, one,
yeah.
you're also like really close to mash temp already.
Yeah, right.
You're getting to that point where you can start making your beer with the water coming up right out of the ground.
I just feel like any town with famous water should have a brewery. Definitely, you should get to drink that water in the form of beer.
Yeah, well, and there's a brewery almost everywhere now, so why not here, which is a cool touristy town and has a great history too.
Exactly right. Well, it was crazy because I basically reached out to the park and said, "Is it possible to brew with the hot spring water?" And they said, "Yes. We have a way that you can lease a bathhouse and put your brewery in there." I was like, "What? Okay."
So you didn't even really have to convince them; they were kind of
they were open to the idea, but classic federal government is quite a paperwork process. So I had to respond to a request for proposals, RFP. So I asked the park if I could open a brewery and use the spring water, and the answer was, "Here's this huge stack of paper." Yeah, I've gotten really good at paperwork. No, I just had to basically put in a business plan and explain how I would use the water, how the business would work. It was about a 90-page document. It was like doing a dissertation. It took a year to put together the proposal. I had to pull together bank financing and equipment quotes, and basically put together the whole project. So.
And this is just for the national park side of it.
Just to the national park side of it, yeah. Just to ask permission to use the buildings.
So had you brewed with hot springs water yet?
We'd homebrewed. Yeah, we tested. We tested with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can talk about that. The hot spring water is actually pretty good for brewing. It's very low in measures of hardness, so calcium, magnesium, potassium, very low in those measures, but it's a little bit high in bicarbonate, or the bicarbonate to sulfite ratio is a little bit off, so it's on the alkaline side, the pH is a bit high, but otherwise it's kind of a blank slate for as far as brewing water goes. So it's good. Well, it's very similar to the water in Dusseldorf, Germany area, so it makes a great Kolsch, just straight as is, but what we do is we adjust the pH of the mash. We use a little acid to drop the pH of the mash to get.
So that's going to be kind of cool for you too, being like that you traveled over there, and you probably have a little bit of the history that a lot of beers, especially beers that were made a couple hundred years ago or more, they were brewed in certain locations just because of that, because they didn't have all the filtering and things that we have today. You can brew almost anywhere now if you have the right filtration, but they had to go where the water was, and you're kind of doing a similar thing by coming to the hot springs.
Well, exactly, and that is kind of a theory of mine, is that basically different styles of beer evolved around the world because of the water they had available to them, and the Burton-on-Trent style beers, the British ales, the stouts, the porters, and all that have a certain style to them versus pilsens from Czechoslovakia, or the German lagers from Germany. So definitely sounds like
really
that's
added to the beer.
Right. Mm-hmm. Actually, in the beginning, it was very tempting to actually spoke to John Palmer and worked through his spreadsheet and did some work to adjust some water profiles, water salt profiles.
Anybody who homebrews, John Palmer is one of the godfathers of homebrewing.
Exactly. So he was happy to speak with me.
That's
and we went through a kind of an exercise in adjusting that, and we do that for a few beers, especially on the hoppy side. But I kind of came back around on that theory and said, "Hey, this is my water. I'm the only one in the world with this water. So
cool.
Why would let that water kind of inform some of our beer styles?"
Yeah.
We're a very small brewery, so we can get creative with that. We don't have to.
Did you do side-by-side tests with bring in outside water and brew the same beer on two different things, or
no? I have.
Or is it just you can kind of tell from drinking?
Yeah, you can tell. I think I can pick I mean, this is true of anything, but if 5 different breweries brew the exact same recipe with the exact same mash schedule, as closely as possible, I think I can pick ours out of the lineup just from the water.
So you notice something to it.
Yeah, I do. It definitely has. It's not very minerally. Like it's a very neutral water, but there's a flavor at the end. It's not metallic, but like there's a flavor that comes out the end of most of our beers that I actually really like, and I think it comes from the water. That's my theory.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, because you were brewing and you were a home brewer and you were brewing. Are you still doing a lot of brewing now, or do you have like, other people that are brewing?
They let me help sometimes.
Okay, they let you help.
They let you help.
when we
You
first
started the brewery, so
when we
we'll let
first
you help.
yeah when we first opened, me and Jimm, the brewer, did all the brewing. But now like this business has grown to the point where I have to do a lot of owner stuff. So he's actually got helpers now. So
Right, you've got a full-on restaurant here, and you have event space now, and different things like that.
Exactly. So
Do you miss kind of being hands-on sometimes?
I do. But yeah, like I said, they let me help. And of course, I definitely get to request beers. So
Oh yeah,
like, you should make
I would
it.
hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Like no, you should make this. So they
You
they
are
will.
signing
So
the checks, so
yeah, right, exactly. No,
I'll
I get
help a little bit.
I get to help with recipes and of course do all the taste testing. So
Yeah,
that's good.
taste testing. Best part.
So, many years ago, I had contemplated like becoming like a truck driver, and I was like, okay, but a truck driver, nobody really knows this either. But to me, in my mind too, it was like, all right, if I'm going to be a truck driver, I'm going to be one of the rare women that are doing that. And so I was just curious, do you get any grief, or does it like help you? Do you see anything different with that, or how has that kind of affected you, if at all?
Mm-hmm. It is definitely a male-centric industry for sure. Brewing, a lot of brewers and brewery owners are men, although I think there's a growing ratio of women who are brewers and brewery owners, and of course, all the bartenders and the whole industry is becoming more equal as far as numbers of women versus men. As far as I wouldn't say I get any grief about it, but there's definitely definitely kind of entrenched feelings about beer, like which beers women prefer, for example, and I think all that comes from like the beer marketing of the 80s and 90s. The Bud Light ladies in the bikini playing beach volleyball, and
we did follow a lot of
great
stereotypes
taste, less
for a long
filling,
time.
and all the light beers and stuff, and then like all the fruit, like kind of stereotypically fruity beers came out, and they're kind of marketed towards women. But I definitely think it's kind of in our subconscious that maybe we don't have there are fewer beer nerds who are in fact women. Guys who are brewers and brewery owners, they respect everyone who brews and owns a brewery. We all are kind of in this world together. So it's not it's definitely not other brewers or brewery owners who would be critical of a female brewer, but it is hard to be at a beer fest or whatever. You have people explaining to you about the hops and stuff. It's like, well, I actually own a brewery, so
Let me tell you something.
Well, and as
people don't assume that you're in the industry, like or have a lot of knowledge in the industry.
That's good. I mean, and what you're saying there, I definitely firsthand we've experienced here with traveling around to some different breweries already before here. Like we knew we wanted to come talk to you here because you have such a cool, unique just experience going on here. But on the way here, we ended up talking to a bunch of other brewers and some beer media personalities and stuff. John the Snob, which actually John the Snob is actually very nice
John the
guy.
beer snob.
The beer snob.
John the beer snob. Yes.
Well, now he's probably not going to be a very nice guy now because John's going to hunt me down because I left out the beer. But anyway, what I was
John's awesome.
What I was going to say though is that as we talk to people around the Arkansas beer scene, there was no hint of any kind of discrimination or whatever you want to call it. Like a lot of people actually went out of their way to point out that you have a really cool brewery going on here, and a couple others, like I think Preston Rose is also started by a woman as well. Okay,
Liz Preston
and so,
is her name. Yeah. We have. I think there are 4 female-owned breweries in here in Arkansas.
Wow, and that's actually a good.
More.
I mean, for how early you are in developing this big boom, because I mean, 10 years ago there were maybe less than 10 breweries in the
period,
state.
yeah. Well,
And
my
now there's
permit number
40
is
some.
10. Arkansas 10.
You were number 10?
So I think
Wow.
yeah, if I was the 10th, that's crazy.
And so you started.
We actually this place opened. Our restaurant opened a year and a half before we started brewing. So that was in 2013. We started brewing in January of 2015.
I mean, a lot of people come here to Hot Springs for the bathhouses and stuff that are all up and down this road next to you. But this one sat empty for a long time, right? What kind of hurdles did you face, like starting a brewery in a bathhouse? Obviously, there was all the red tape and paperwork, but that just kind of goes with a brewery and working with the federal government. But what was it like starting a brewery in a bathhouse? I mean, that's kind of funky just by itself, you know?
Well, part of it is, I'm entrusted with one of our historic treasures. So this property is individually listed on the National Register of Historic Places and also on federal property. So every aspect of our renovation has to go through pretty rigorous historic review process.
Oh wow!
So it's not as hard as you would think. They honestly are very open to adaptive reuse, which is when you take a building that was built for one purpose and put a new purpose in it. Like a brewery and a bathhouse is a perfect example. They understand that you have to modify a building. This building wasn't meant to put a brewery in it, but there are certain things we weren't allowed to change, or for example, I could not put a garage door in the side of the building to make it easier to move equipment in and out, that kind of thing. But we were able to obviously install a brewery and all the related equipment. It comes with a brewery and a commercial kitchen and all those things.
And what used to be in your brew house?
What is the brew house?
Yeah, the brew house is right behind us.
It was actually the men's bath hall, but there were 35 bathtubs in that room, and marble stalls, different sizes, bathtubs, sitz baths, and big baths.
So all I'm picturing in my head right now is Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson in the bathtub. Did you get that?
In Shanghai Noon.
Shanghai Noon. I don't know if you've seen that, but they're in the bathtub.
I was actually thinking more along the historical lines of Hot Springs. I'm picturing like Bugsy Malone sitting back. Because if you don't know the history of this area, and I'm not a scholar by any means, but I was told by many people that this was kind of a hotbed for like gangsters and stuff to come and vacation. Right? Basically, they came here to hang out.
Hotbed for gangsters and celebrities, and actually, this was the home of baseball spring training for many years too. Wow. So the professional teams would come, and part of their training for the season was to take the baths and get therapeutic massages and a lot of hiking and walking.
Did they actually play around here?
There were practice fields.
There were some practice fields?
Yeah, there were practice fields. There's a place where Babe Ruth hit a home run into the alligator farm across the street. That kind of thing. So that's that's kind of neat. But I'm positive, some of the famous early baseball players went through this building. I'm sure they did. This one's funny. So this is the Superior Bathhouse. It's the smallest bathhouse here on Bathhouse Row, square footage wise.
And, it's not a small building.
It's not a small building. It's about 10,000 square feet. Their motto was superior in service. Was kind of their slogan, and I think reading between the lines, it kind of meant they were the lowest price bathhouse. So they were kind of going, instead of being the fancy place with all the fancy decorations, they were like, you'll get treated well here, and we're the cheapest bathhouse. So it was crazy. They were all government regulated. And the pricing and the services they offered were all government regulated. So it was pretty fascinating how these bathhouses existed. So yeah, this one was vacant. Basically, one by one, they all closed. In 1983, this was the last bathhouse to close to the public in 1983. So it was vacant for 30 years. And all these buildings were sitting empty.
So all of them started closing?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, all of these except there's one that never closed, and there's another one that is kind of administration offices for the park, so it was never a bathhouse.
Do you know if that was just like lack of tourism coming in or people coming in? Or?
Yeah, there just wasn't the market for to keep
just
9 bathhouses.
Gangsters left in it.
Yeah.
Or baseball.
Yeah. The bathing kind of fell out of chic. I mean, we all have indoor plumbing at our houses, and we all have bathtubs at home, and we don't have to go to the bathhouse to clean up for the month. So, by 1983, the bathing industry had kind of fallen by the wayside.
So it was the bathhouses here were more functional than luxurious. When we think of it now, a bathhouse now we think of as like a spa kind of area. That's what it is to us these days. But I guess
No.
back then that's why you had a bathhouse, because you didn't have a bathtub.
Well, it was very
or a shower
functional.
room.
A lot of it was considered therapeutic, so there were a lot of medical or like quasi-medical beliefs about how bathing could heal you, or there were treatment plans where a doctor would prescribe a bath and a massage and a hike, or that kind of thing. It was all kind of wrapped up in this medical therapy
And a craft beer.
Craft beer.
You
This is
can't
great
have
therapy.
literally
Yes.
legally say it's therapeutic, but
Yes, I wouldn't make any
It's
FDA prohibited claims.
That's what I'm saying. Here's is a therapy.
There's no stickers on here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Promise you, it's
Yeah.
worth it.
So yeah, this poor building was vacant for 30 years until I got the key. However, they had these bathhouses, and they were trying to figure out how to, keep them up. When a building is vacant, it
Right,
tends
so
to
they didn't want to
deteriorate.
tear these beautiful buildings
Oh, yeah,
down.
right,
Because
exactly.
they are gorgeous
Exactly.
buildings too.
Yeah, they're very cool examples of architecture, neoclassical style commercial architecture, cool stuff. So in the early 2000s, National Park went to U.S. Congress and asked for an emergency funding package to stabilize the status of these bathhouses. So they stabilized the buildings and made them tenant ready. I would disagree with tenant ready, but basically ready to lease.
Made sure they weren't going to fall in.
So go back to me emailing the park. Can I open a brewery and use your water? And they said, yeah, check out the Superior Bathhouse. That is the reason that happened, is because they had put together this whole historic leasing program here at Hot Springs National Park. And Hot Springs National Park is pioneers in the whole federal government as far as leasing historic properties. So a lot of other parks and similar agencies are looking at this program and seeing how can we lease vacant lighthouses or ranger stations, or we have these cool buildings around the country that maybe are cost prohibitive to maintain a vacant building with taxpayer dollars that are
Right.
being stretched
And
year
just
after
turn
year.
it into a museum or whatever.
Right,
for lack of a
we
better
can't turn every
term.
historic building into a museum, but they were open to allowing private businesses to come and take over the building and put a
So
business.
How much of Hot Springs is because the whole town, I assume, is in the national park?
The boundary of the national
Or is
park
it-
is our front sidewalk right here.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yep,
so you're on the national
yep,
park
across the
side.
street is
But the
is-
coffee shop across the street,
Yep.
which is very
that's
good.
in the city. Yeah, that is the city of Hot Springs right there.
That's
Oh,
the
okay.
city.
Yeah.
Okay. So everything on this side
Mhm.
is part of the park, and so anybody who has a business over here is renting from the federal government.
And that was the way that they were using it to preserve like the hot springs, correct? And like, 'cause
Yeah. I mean, the hot springs are very closely regulated distribution system. They have to basically ensure that it's safe to drink or bathe in. So the way it works is there are 47 springs. They're right up here on this hillside, and they're all collected into a system. So we don't have like open springs you could go hop in. They're collected through a system of pipes. They are kind of aggregated in basically a water tower. And daily and weekly there are certain tests they have to do on the water to monitor the safety of
So
the
you
water.
don't have to do any of that. You don't have that kind
No,
of
I don't have to do.
pressure
I don't
on
have
top
to
of
do
your
that. So
roof.
right. So it's crazy. The same system that sends the hot water to the spas and the hotels that use the thermal water sends it to my building too. So I literally turn a valve and hot spring
Okay.
water flows out.
That's
So I-
pretty cool.
I
So
can
we
say-
don't have like a pit in the basement where we're like scoop it out. Go get the water, guys.
Well, that's good.
So I was gonna say you're an
Sorry,
entrepreneur, a brewer, and you've
Yeah.
also become quite the historian. That's pretty cool.
Yes, I just think it's so interesting that, the hot spring water is the reason Hot Springs became, a town formed here, and the reason it was, this was actually named the first U.S. reserve. Andrew Jackson, we won't really talk about him too much, but he named Hot Springs a U.S. reserve before there was even a national park system.
So in a way, it's kind of before Yellowstone.
Yeah, I mean, Yellowstone was the first to be named a national park, but Hot Springs National Park was the first to be set aside by
Kind of
the federal
protected
government
by the
as a
federal
federal resource because of the spring water.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
it's really nice
That is
history.
pretty cool.
And next year is the 100th anniversary of Hot Springs National Park
Uh-oh.
being named the national park.
So what are you brewing for the 100th?
All the beer.
You're brewing all the beer. You're
All the
brewing
beer.
everything.
The superintendent asked me the other day if it would be possible to brew a special beer for the centennial. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
we are on that.
Tops.
Absolutely. No, I made a cool beer. The guys let me do this one. A couple months ago, we took herbs from within the national park and infused into a saison. So we did a yopon tea. Yopon is like a native holly bush. That is actually, that bush right there is a yopon. But we actually made a tea. It tastes a lot like a black tea. So if you've had a Earl Grey saison or a black tea saison, it made a lot of sense. We took yopon and mint. There's some wild mint species that live here in the park.
Oh, cool.
I made kind of a mint tea saison.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
For a special event. So something like that we'll have to do. Or maybe, maybe we can cultivate a yeast from within the park and brew with a wild yeast. I think that would be a possibility if we can find some, when the fruit, there are some native fruits like pawpaws and stuff like that that live in the park. They're like,
Don't know what that is.
they're like weird grape things. They're not grapes, they're not related to grapes, but they kind of taste like, I don't know, or like quince. I just thought it would be cool to actually cultivate a yeast, culture a yeast from somewhere in the park and potentially brew beer with it. So
That's serious science.
that is really great. That is heavy duty science.
Yeah. So we live what we call our website Living a Stout Life, and it's kind of a double edged meaning. So stout, obviously beer, but more like a full, authentic, kind of passionate life.
Yeah.
And so we are curious about how for you, that doesn't have to be brewery related, like how you would define your stout.
I live a stout life. I would say just surrounding myself with people who kind of, complete me in a way or contribute, to my life in a positive way. Or, friends are really important to me, and just experiencing life, hanging out, cooking, drinking beer, that kind of thing. Like that's kind of my favorite thing to do is just, shoot the shit with friends, and that's perfect. Drink beer. So I think there's a beer for like every moment. There's like a perfect beer or whatever you're drinking at the time. It doesn't have to be a great beer or a fancy beer or anything. It's like beer. You can have a cold beer on the beach. It doesn't have to be a hazy IPA. Or you can have a situation like this where we're here to talk about beer. We're going to nerd out on beer. But
Along those lines,
that's kind of my theory about
I'm going
beer.
to put you on the spot one more time.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be what's your favorite beer. It's going to be what's your favorite worst beer.
Miller High Life.
Miller. She knew right where I was going.
Definitely. Wait, I had more than a couple last night, so
The
yes.
smokiest dive bar.
Diviest wing bar in the world.
Ate everything fried. We had hot wings,
Tater
tots, and like these
cheese
loaded
fries,
trashy
yeah.
fries.
And you just need something to get it down.
Yeah, Miller High Life. Yeah.
I love that answer.
That's our favorite question.
No shame in that. And then my other favorite thing is, so you're hanging out at the bar with people you don't know, and they know you own a brewery. You're like, I can't believe the brewery owner is drinking a Miller High Life. And we're like, well, we don't have to worry about this beer, so. That's funny.
You can just drink it.
Like when you order a craft beer, you're like, who made that? What hops are they using? Oh, is that good? Oh, can we,
Yeah,
is
we get our snob on it.
Is our beer this good? Or is our
Sometimes
beer
you just want to
bad?
drink it.
It's like Miller High Life.
Right,
I know.
but then you take off your snob hat.
Man, that's great. Yeah.
It's like that's a beer you want to drink out of a bottle.
Exactly.
Like I got one.
Yeah, we don't really want to
in a
smell
pint,
it. Yeah, we don't
and I
really
was
need to smell it.
"Ooh, this is kind
Yeah, you don't
of
need
sulfury.
Yeah, you don't need to smell
Yeah,
Miller
I'm
High
like,
Life.
I need to get that in the bottle.
What did you have?
Miller High
Wasn't it
Life.
Miller High Life?
That is one of
We
our
were
best worst
mountain
beers
biking
ever.
in July in Moab.
It's
That's when you need
105
Miller High Life.
degrees and we ran out of water.
And there was no place to buy beer that we knew because we didn't know the town. And we get back to our place, the hostel
Not
that we were
quickly.
staying at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I will pay anybody for whatever beer they have.
Yeah,
And it was a Miller High Life, like tall boy.
That's all, boy.
That thing tasted
Perfect. So good.
so good.
We crushed that thing in like
I know.
under a minute, I think. Because we just needed something cold. And it was the best apple juice I've ever had.
Best apple juice. Exactly. I like to say we're beer nerds, but we're not beer snobs.
There you go.
That takes all the fun out of it. I mean, not talking about John the Beer Snob Wells.
John might disagree with you.
That is his handle, and that is fine. But it's I think you can appreciate a little bit of every beer.
I think you just opened up my eyes a little bit more. That's good. I might have opened up his eyes. He's totally a beer snob.
Oh, I'm very much a
No,
beer
it's okay.
snob,
It's
and
okay
that's
to be a beer
okay.
snob.
Good.
It's okay to be a beer snob.
But
But-
I'll go down that road when I need to, man.
It's hot, I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
What kind of beer is here? Okay, I'm having that.
That's
Well, you don't want to guzzle this. It's
No,
just
no.
way
It's just
too good.
another kind of flavored water for me, that's all.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, on
with
that
that,
note, I think we can do a cheers.
Cheers
Stout
to
life.
everyone.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that-
There are new episodes with new conversations every Sunday night. Be sure to subscribe and click the little gray bell so you don't miss out. We'd love to hear from you. What's your best, worst beer? Let us know by leaving a comment below or by following the link in the description.
Hi. Hi, camera. 4 7 barrels. We got a 5th, then we got a 6th. And we started getting some 10 barrel tanks. And I was like, we're going to put in a new brewery. So we actually upgraded our brewery to a more automated 10 barrel steam. But it was steam fired before. It just had a little more bells. Yeah, that's how we put 18 beers in. We have this cellar space for it. That's important to us to have the variety. That's what's important to have that experience.
Talked to in Georgetown, Colorado, they have a little 7-barrel system, but they carry 14 beers in a tap all the time.
Yeah.
And their brew house is like in their tap room. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like this is in the tap room.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
the fermenters are behind.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, all this equipment we had to pull through the front windows in the building. So
Oh my goodness.
Oh, so you had to take the windows out?
Yeah, we pulled the windows out. We built a plywood ramp, built a skate ramp from
Right, because
the
you
front.
couldn't open anything up.
Exactly. Yeah, we couldn't like cut a hole in the ceiling or anything.
Built a
so-
giant cart
Giant cart.
that had this contour to it. We laid the tanks down on them,
Yeah, took these over, rolled it in.
rolled them in. We got the forklift stuck.
Yeah, it was very
It was
frustrating.
terrible.
Took a week.
We finally were like, we're not going to get this unstuck today. Let's just go have a beer.
Yeah, the forklift and our mash tent spent the night on the front yard.
But no one was going to take it because they weigh
Yeah,
like
we can't
2,000
move it, so-
pounds.
Yeah, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Walk off with it?
Funny.
What,
Yeah,
what
like, this
gonna
can't go
happen?
anywhere, so. This is so yeah, our mash tent was stuck in the mud, didn't winch it out.
Oh,
And it's kind of Colorado right there.
Yeah, that sounds very Colorado.
Not a Jeep, but
Yeah.